Dolores Cannon cracked the code on the higher self, and Neville Goddard showed us how to manifest it. But what's the secret to their powerful convergence, and how can it effortlessly manifest your reality while you sleep? Imagine waking up to a reality where your greatest wealth and deepest desires have effortlessly materialized. It sounds like magic, but what if the key lies in understanding a powerful convergence between Dolores Cannon's higher self and Neville Goddard's law of assumption? Let's unlock the hidden potential within you and learn how to truly manifest your reality, especially while your subconscious is most receptive. Take a deep breath with me for a moment. Just one. Let the weight of your day, the to-do lists, the noise, the expectations, just settle behind you. Imagine you are standing at the edge of a vast, still lake at dawn. The water is a perfect mirror, reflecting a sky so wide it feels ancient. This is the closest physical representation I can give you of your subconscious mind. But beneath that surface, deep down, where the light turns to a soft, golden glow, is something even more profound. Dolores Cannon spent over 40 years exploring this deep water. She called it the higher self. It isn't just a part of your brain that remembers where you left your keys. It is a vast, all-knowing consciousness that exists beyond your ego, beyond your name, and certainly beyond your current bank account balance. It's the you that isn't afraid, the you that has seen the beginning and the end of the story. What if your deepest desires aren't just random thoughts, but direct whispers from a higher, all-knowing part of you? Dolores Cannon cracked the code on the higher self, and Neville Goddard showed us how to manifest it. But what's the secret to their powerful convergence, and how can it effortlessly manifest your reality while you sleep? Imagine waking up to a reality where your greatest wealth and deepest desires have effortlessly materialized. It sounds like magic, but what if the key lies in understanding a powerful convergence between Dolores Cannon's higher self and Neville Goddard's law of assumption? Let's unlock the hidden potential within you and learn how to truly manifest your reality, especially while your subconscious is most receptive. Take a deep breath with me for a moment. Just one. Let the weight of your day, the to-do lists, the noise, the expectations, just settle behind you. Imagine you are standing at the edge of a vast, still lake at dawn. The water is a perfect mirror, reflecting a sky so wide it feels ancient. This is the closest physical representation I can give you of your subconscious mind. But beneath that surface, deep down, where the light turns to a soft golden glow, is something even more profound. Dolores Cannon spent over 40 years exploring this deep water. She called it the higher self. It isn't just a part of your brain that remembers where you left your keys. It is a vast, all-knowing consciousness that exists beyond your ego, beyond your name, and certainly beyond your current bank account balance. It's the you that isn't afraid, the you that has seen the beginning and the end of the story. Next, I would like to touch up on a question I get asked so often. How do I know if what I want is actually meant for me? We've been taught to believe that our desires are greedy or random or just products of a culture telling us we need more. But what if we flipped that script entirely? What if your deepest, most persistent desires aren't wants at all, What if they are actually direct whispers from this higher self? Think about a desire you have held for a long time. Not the ego-driven need to show them all, but that quiet, steady hum of a dream that feels like home. Dolores discovered through thousands of sessions that the higher self doesn't speak in shoulds or musts. It speaks in the language of expansion. It is a version of you that is already living that reality, reaching back through time and space to tap you on the shoulder. But here is where the engineering comes in. This deeper intelligence is inherently designed for growth. It literally drives your brain's neuroplasticity. When your higher self drops a new desire into your heart, it isn't just a teasing thought. It's a signal for your brain to start building. Scientifically, your brain is always listening to the commands of your consciousness. When you align with a higher self desire, you are actually triggering the brain to forge new neural pathways. It's as if the higher self is the architect, and neuroplasticity is the construction crew, ready to reshape your physical mind to match your spiritual expansion. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? If your brain is already wired to adapt to these higher whispers, why does it ever feel like a struggle? It makes you wonder, doesn't it? If your brain is already wired to adapt to these higher whispers, why does it ever feel like a struggle? Imagine for a second that your mind is like a vast, untamed landscape. Most of us have been walking the same narrow, dusty footpaths for years. The paths of, I can't afford that, or I'm not lucky in love, or life is just a grind. These paths are deep. They are comfortable. They are what your brain recognizes as safe. But then, out of nowhere, a true desire hits you. It's that sudden, breathtaking realization that you were meant for something bigger. Maybe it's a creative calling, a specific level of wealth, or a deep, soul-level partnership. This is where we often get stuck. We think we are wanting something that doesn't exist yet. But next, I would like to touch up on a much more powerful truth. That desire isn't a want. It's a signal. When your higher self sends that whisper, it's actually sending a pulse of energy that acts like a beacon for your biology. It is prompting your brain to begin the process of anticipatory neuroplasticity. Scientifically, your brain has this incredible ability to prepare for a future event before it even happens. When you lean into a desire from your higher self, your neurons actually start to fire and wire in a way that assumes the goal is already a reality. You see, the struggle only happens when your ego tries to fight the new construction. Your ego looks at the dusty old path and says, "But we always walk this way," while your higher self is already building a high-speed rail to your dreams. I want you to think of your deepest desires as notifications from your future self. They aren't random. They are the pioneer signals. Just like a scout goes ahead of an army to map out the terrain, your desire is the scout. It's the part of you that has already arrived at the destination, reaching back to tell your physical brain, "Hey, start building the neural bridge. We're moving here now." This is such a shift in perspective, isn't it? Instead of begging the universe for a change, imagine simply acknowledging that the wiring has already begun. You aren't trying to force a square peg into a round hole. You are allowing your brain to catch up to a truth that your higher self already lives. When you feel that click of recognition, that moment where a dream feels more real than your current reality, that is your neuroplasticity in action. Your brain is literally reshaping its architecture to accommodate your new life. It's not magic, it's spiritual engineering. But this leads us to something even more practical. If the desire is the signal and the brain is the builder, how do we stop the ego from getting in the way? How do we take this knowing and turn it into a permanent state of being? Next, I would like to touch up on how we bridge this to Neville Goddard's blueprint. How we use the law of assumption to make these new neural pathways not just a temporary flash, but a permanent, solid reality. Let's lean into this for a moment, because understanding this first layer is what changes trying to manifest into allowing it to happen. Imagine the moment you decide to travel to a beautiful, far-off city. You don't sit in your living room wishing the city would appear in your backyard. You don't beg the air to transport you there. Instead, the moment the decision is made, a shift happens in your mind. You start looking at maps, you visualize the streets, and you begin to feel the excitement of being there. The wanting has been replaced by a quiet, steady knowing that you are going. This is exactly where the bridge to Neville Goddard becomes so vital. Neville often spoke about the idea that desire is the gift of God. When we view this through the lens of Dolores Cannon's higher self, we realize that desire isn't a sign of lack. It's a preview of a reality that is already yours in the higher dimensions. I want you to consider how this completely redefines your inner world. Usually, we think of desire as a heavy, painful thing, a constant reminder of what we don't have. But Neville invites us to see it as a command. If the higher self is the architect and your brain is the construction crew, then Neville's living in the end is the final inspection of the building. When you move from "I wish I had more money" to the inner knowing of "wealth is my natural state," you are doing more than just thinking positive thoughts. You are activating your brain's capacity for adaptive change. Your brain is incredibly efficient. It doesn't like to waste energy on things it thinks are fake. If you are just wishing, your brain stays dormant. It keeps you on those old, dusty paths of struggle because it doesn't believe a change is actually happening. But the moment you embrace this inner knowing, the moment you align with the higher self's perspective, your brain receives a high priority work order. It begins to filter your environment differently. It starts to notice opportunities you were blind to before. This is the reticular activating system at work. But on a spiritual level, it's your biology catching up to your divinity. You aren't forcing the world to change. You are changing the internal observer. And as a result, the world has no choice but to rearrange itself to match your new neural architecture. It's a beautiful, seamless dance. Your higher self whispers the destination, and Neville's principles give you the permission to claim it as your current truth. This knowing acts like a bridge of incidents where your actions become effortless because they are coming from a place of fulfillment rather than a place of desperate seeking. I'd love to explore with you what happens when we take this powerful inner knowing into the most receptive state of all, the moments just before you fall asleep. How do we ensure these new assumptions aren't just passing thoughts, but become the very fabric of our reality? So, how do we actually take that whisper from the higher self and anchor it into our physical world? This is where we step into the brilliance of Neville Goddard's law of assumption. Imagine you are an actor who has just been handed the role of a lifetime. You don't spend your time on stage wishing you were the character. You simply are the character. You walk like them, you breathe like them, and you see the world through their eyes. The law of assumption asks you to do the exact same thing with your life. It's the art of acting as if the wealth, the love, or the health you've been seeking is already a solid, undeniable fact in your current experience. But this isn't about faking it until you make it. That sounds like a struggle, doesn't it? Instead, I want you to see this as aligning your frequency. When you assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled, you are actually priming your neural networks for a brand new reality. From a neurological perspective, your brain doesn't actually know the difference between a vividly imagined experience and a physical one. When you sit in the silence and feel the tonality of fortune or the warmth of a loved one's hand in yours, your brain begins to fire as if those things are happening right now. You are essentially pre-wiring your brain. You are building the infrastructure for your dream life before the first brick is even laid in the physical world. I'm really curious to show you how this connects back to what we discussed about the higher self. You see, your assumption isn't a delusion or a lie you're telling yourself. It's actually a profound act of truth-telling. Because your higher self already exists in that state of fulfillment. When you assume the feeling of your desire, you are finally agreeing with your highest truth. You are saying, I recognize that what I seek is already mine. This alignment is what makes the manifesting process feel so much lighter. When you assume the state, you stop the frantic how-to searching. Your brain moves out of the stress and survival mode, which is controlled by the amygdala, and shifts into the creative and expansive mode of the prefrontal cortex. This is where the magic happens. In this state, your mind becomes a magnet for the bridge of incidents, those series of coincidences and opportunities that lead you directly to your goal. You might find that you start waking up with different ideas, or you suddenly feel the urge to call someone or go somewhere new. These aren't accidents. These are the natural results of a brain that has been primed to recognize a new reality. You've moved the goalposts of your life. And now, your entire biology is working to help you kick the ball through. I'd love to explore with you how we can tell if these assumptions are coming from that deep, expansive place of the higher self, or if they're just the ego trying to keep us in a loop. Shall we move on to how you can identify a higher self desire versus an ego-driven one, so you can be sure you're building on a foundation of truth? I want you to really let this sink in, because it's the moment the weight finally drops off your shoulders. When you practice Neville's law of assumption, The world might try to tell you that you're just daydreaming or being unrealistic. But I'd love to share a secret with you that changes everything. Your assumption is not a delusion. It's actually the highest form of sanity. Imagine you're looking through a telescope. The ego only sees the blurry distance, but the higher self is the lens that brings everything into sharp, crystal clear focus. When you assume the feeling of your wish fulfilled, you aren't tricking yourself into believing a lie. Instead, you are finally aligning your human perspective with what your higher self already experiences as an absolute existing truth. It's like you're finally tuning your radio to the station that's been playing your favorite song all along. The music was always there. You just had to find the frequency. This alignment is what does the heavy lifting for your biology. Every time you return to that feeling of, it is done, you are sending a powerful command to your nervous system. You are strengthening those neural connections, turning what was once a faint maybe into a solid, reinforced belief structure. I think you'll find it incredibly empowering to realize that you aren't building these neural pathways from scratch by sheer willpower. You are simply allowing the truth of your higher self to overwrite the old, limited programming of the ego. Your brain starts to treat the assumption as the primary data point. It begins to say, okay, if this is who we are now, then I need to adjust our perception to match. This is how we move into that state of effortless manifestation. It feels effortless because you've stopped fighting yourself. You aren't a person trying to get rich or trying to find love. You are a person who has accepted the higher self's reality that you are already abundant and already loved. I'm so excited to walk you through the next part of this journey, because once you understand this alignment, the next step is knowing how to tell the difference between a true higher self calling and just a passing ego whim. I want you to think of this like tuning a delicate instrument. Sometimes we have so much noise in our lives, the expectations of our parents, the pressure of social media, or even our own fears, that we mistake the loud, frantic shouting of the ego for the voice of our destiny. I'm really looking forward to showing you how to tell the difference. Because once you can identify the source code of your desires, your manifestation becomes laser focused. Imagine you have two different voices inside you. One is like a persistent salesperson, loud and a bit pushy, telling you that you need that fancy car or that specific title so people will finally respect you. That's the ego. It's born from a place of not enough, and it usually feels tight, anxious, or heavy in your body. When you think about an ego desire, your heart might race, but it's a nervous energy, like you're running a race you can't win. But then there's the other voice. I'd love for you to experience what this one feels like. The higher self doesn't shout. It speaks in a way that feels expansive. When a desire originates from your higher self, it feels like a sudden opening in your chest. It's a feeling of course. It's a quiet, profound, neurological click of recognition. It's almost as if you aren't discovering something new, but rather remembering something very old. You might think of a goal, and instead of feeling, I have to get this, you feel a wave of peace that says, this is who I am. A great practical step for you to try is the body compass technique. Sit quietly, take a breath, and bring your desire to mind. If it's from the ego, you'll often feel a physical contraction. Your shoulders might hunch, or your stomach might tighten. It feels like grasping. But if it's from your higher self, notice if your body feels lighter. Do you feel like you're taking up more space? Does your breathing become deeper and more rhythmic? That expansion is the physical evidence of your brain and spirit aligning. It's your neuroplasticity saying, yes, we have the space for this. This fits our design. It's so beautiful when you realize that the higher self's desires aren't about proving your worth to the world. They are about expressing the truth that is already within you. They don't feel like a struggle to achieve, but like an invitation to become. I can't wait to dive into our next point with you, because once you've identified that beautiful, expansive click, we need to talk about the most powerful workshop you have for building this new reality, the state of sleep. This brings us to a place of such incredible potential, and I'm so deeply curious to share this with you because it is the secret lab of your own creation. We often think of sleep as a time when we simply shut down, a blank space between today and tomorrow. But what if you began to see it as the most productive part of your entire existence? Imagine that as the sun goes down and you start to feel that gentle pull toward rest, you are actually preparing to enter a sacred workshop. When you close your eyes, the conscious guard, that part of your ego that spends all day judging, worrying, and telling you why things won't work, finally takes its hands off the wheel. It goes on break, and in that silence, your subconscious mind finally gets the floor. I'd love for you to consider the unique potency of this state. Scientifically, as you drift toward sleep, your brain waves slow down, moving from the alert beta state into alpha and finally into theta. In this theta state, the gate between your conscious desires and your subconscious power is wide open. It is a period of hypersuggestibility where the brain is incredibly receptive to new programming and neuroplastic changes, all without any conscious interference or rational pushback. I think you'll find it quite beautiful how our higher self communicates during these hours. During the day, the higher self is constantly whispering to you, but its voice is often drowned out by the noise of the world, the traffic, the emails, the internal chatter of, I have to do this, or I'm not enough of that. But when the lights go out, the chatter subsides. This is when the higher self speaks most clearly and effortlessly. It's like a radio station that finally comes in crisp and clear once you've driven away from the interference of the city. During sleep, your brain isn't just resting. It is busy with memory consolidation. It's taking the knowings and the assumptions you leaned into during the day and physically weaving them into your long-term neural architecture. I'd love to emphasize to you that this is the moment your dream life moves from a thought to a physical fact in your biology. While you are dreaming, your brain is actually strengthening the neural pathways you've chosen to focus on. It is pruning away the old paths of lack and reinforcing the highways of your new reality. Your higher self acts as the master engineer during these hours, ensuring that the blueprints you've provided are being built into the very fabric of your mind. Since we know this door is open, how do you walk through it with intention? I'm so excited to walk you through the techniques for conscious engagement right before you drift off. This is what I call sleep engineering. Imagine you are lying in bed. The blankets are warm, and you are in that hazy, delicious state where you are half awake and half dreaming. This is your golden hour. Instead of scrolling through your phone or replaying the stresses of the day, I want you to start a vivid imagination practice. Neville Goddard called this the state akin to sleep. You aren't just thinking about your desire, you are entering into it. If your desire is a new home, don't just see a picture of it. Imagine the weight of the key in your hand. Feel the cool metal. Smell the scent of the fresh paint or the wood floor. Hear the sound of your own footsteps on the carpet. I'd love to touch upon why this works so powerfully. By engaging your senses, you are providing the subconscious with sensory data. Because the subconscious cannot distinguish between a real event and a vividly imagined one, it accepts this data as truth. As you drift into sleep with these sensations, you are handing a direct work order to your higher self. You are saying, "This is the reality I am choosing. Build this while I rest." Next, I want to explore with you the role of affirmations in this process, but perhaps not the way you've used them before. Forget the rote repetition of words that feel empty. Instead, use knowing affirmations. As you feel yourself slipping away into sleep, whisper a single short phrase that encapsulates the feeling of your wish fulfilled. Something like, "It is done," or "Thank you," or "I am so grateful for this life." Repeat it like a lullaby. You are using these words as a frequency, not a plea. These affirmations act as a direct line to your higher self, acting as the final seal on the neural pathways being laid down. I think you'll find it fascinating that this isn't just spiritual theory. It is biological reality. Studies in neurobiology show that the brain's glymphatic system flushes out toxins during sleep, but it also allows for the restructuring of synapses. By directing your thoughts right before sleep, you are literally choosing which synapses to strengthen. You are rewiring your brain for wealth, for love, or for peace, while your body is completely still. I'd love to share one more thought with you about this nightly ritual. When you wake up the next morning, that knowing shouldn't vanish. Because you've engineered your sleep, your brain actually wakes up differently. You might find that the struggle feels a little further away. You might notice that you feel a natural, quiet confidence that you didn't have to pump yourself up for. That is because the work was done in the deep. The higher self has already integrated that assumption into your reality. Imagine waking up and feeling like the person who already has everything they've ever wanted. Not because you're pretending, but because your neural architecture has actually changed. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? If we can achieve this level of change just by shifting our pre-sleep ritual, what else is possible? How much faster could our reality shift if we stopped fighting for our dreams during the day and started allowing them to be built for us at night. I'm so looking forward to our next point, where we talk about how this alignment leads to effortless wealth and those sudden reality shifts that most people would call miracles, but that you and I know are simply the result of beautiful, conscious engineering. I want you to take a deep, slow breath with me. Let go of the idea that you have to hustle for your worth. We are entering a space now where the old rules of hard work equals reward start to dissolve, replaced by something much more elegant. I'm so excited to share this with you because we're moving into the realm of effortless wealth and reality shifts. Imagine for a moment that you are trying to move a massive, heavy boulder up a steep hill. You're sweating, your muscles are screaming, and every inch feels like a battle. This is how most people approach manifestation, as a struggle to force the universe to give them something. But now imagine that same boulder is actually at the top of the hill, and you've simply realized that the ground is sloped downward toward your destination. You don't have to push anymore. You just have to nudge it and let gravity, or in our case, the higher self, do the work. I'd love for you to realize that when you align with your higher self, the struggle doesn't just get easier. It literally disappears. Why? Because your brain's neuroplasticity has a very specific job. It seeks to match your internal map to your external territory. When you use the techniques we've discussed, engineering your sleep and assuming the state, you are rewriting that internal map. When your brain truly adapts to the assumed reality of wealth, your actions change without you even trying. You aren't forcing yourself to work 80 hours a week to get ahead. Instead, you find yourself waking up with a brilliant idea or striking up a conversation with a stranger that turns into a life-changing partnership. It feels like flow. It feels like you're being pulled by your future rather than pushing through your past. I think you'll find it incredibly liberating to know that the hard work was only ever the friction caused by your brain trying to live in two different realities at once. I'd love to share a real story with you to show you how this looks in the physical world. I once knew a woman, let's call her Sarah. Sarah was stuck in a cycle of just enough. She worked incredibly hard, but her bank account never reflected her effort. She was living in the struggle frequency. She began using these exact engineering techniques. Every night before sleep, instead of worrying about her bills, she imagined the feeling of overflow. Not just having enough, but having more than enough. She felt the physical sensation of her shoulders relaxing, the weight of her digital bank balance feeling heavy and secure in her mind. Within 3 weeks, something impossible happened. An old client she hadn't spoken to in years reached out with a project that was triple her usual rate. Simultaneously, she discovered a forgotten investment account from a previous job that had grown significantly. To an outsider, it looked like a miracle. But I want you to see the truth. Sarah didn't get lucky. Her neurologically coherent belief system finally allowed her to see and accept what was already there. Her brain had literally retuned its filters to recognize wealth that her struggle self was blind to. Let's try something together right now. Imagine you are sitting in your favorite chair. In your mind, reach into your pocket or your bag and pull out your phone, you open your banking app. Don't just think about it. See the colors of the app. Feel the glass screen under your thumb. Now, look at the balance. Imagine a number that feels like absolute freedom to you. Don't let your ego say, "That's too much." Just look at the number. Notice how your body reacts. Does your breath catch? Does your heart flutter? Stay with it until that feeling shifts into a quiet, calm, "Yes, of course." I'm really curious to know, can you feel that shift? That is your neuroplasticity adapting in real time. You are telling your brain that this number is your home frequency. The more you visit this mental space, the more your brain treats it as the real world, and the more effortless your physical actions will become. I want to touch upon a very important distinction here. Most people are focused on getting wealth, but the higher self doesn't get anything, it becomes. This journey is about becoming the version of you for whom wealth is as natural as breathing. When you focus on getting, you are still vibrating at the frequency of not having. But when you focus on allowing, you are acknowledging that the higher self already holds this abundance for you. You are simply opening the curtains to let the sunlight in. Think of it like this. Imagine you are an artist standing before a marble block. The masterpiece is already inside. You aren't adding anything to the marble. You are simply chipping away the parts that aren't the statue. Your struggle, your lack, and your doubts are just the extra stone. As you align with your higher self, those pieces fall away, and the wealthy, fulfilled version of you is finally revealed to the world. I'd love for you to see that these rapid reality shifts aren't magic in the way we usually think. They are the natural outcome of a neurologically coherent belief system. When your thoughts, your emotions, and your subconscious programming are all singing the same note, the universe has no choice but to resonate with you. I've seen people manifest impossible sums of money or have their dream house literally fall into their lap at the perfect price simply because they stopped fighting. They moved into a state of radical allowing. They realized that their only job was to maintain the internal state of fulfillment and let the higher self handle the how. I think you'll find it so encouraging to know that you don't have to figure out the how. In fact, the how is none of your business. Your business is the who. Who are you being in the moments before you fall asleep? Who are you being when you look at your life? Before we move on, I want to give you one more imagination exercise to use tonight. Imagine you are walking through your home, but it's 6 months from now. Everything is different. There is a sense of deep, quiet luxury in the air. Not necessarily gold and marble, but the luxury of peace. You walk to your desk or your kitchen counter, and you see a letter or a notification that confirms your greatest financial dream has been realized. How do you walk in that moment? How do you breathe? I'd love for you to practice this future self walk as you move around your house today. Don't wait for the money to come to feel the peace. Feel the peace now, and the money will have no choice but to find the person who feels like home to it. I'm so excited for what's coming next for you, because once you understand how to shift your reality through ease rather than effort, the final piece of the puzzle is learning how to live from this elevated consciousness every single day. I want you to think of this last step not as a finish line, but as the beginning of a whole new way of walking through the world. We've talked about the lab work of sleep and the blueprints of desire, but now I'd love to show you how to carry that elevated consciousness into your morning coffee, your commute, and your conversations. This is where we bridge the gap between a technique and a transformation. Imagine you are a master gardener. You've spent all night preparing the soil and planting seeds in the dark. That's your sleep manifestation. But if you wake up and spend the whole day stomping on the soil and shouting at the ground because you don't see sprouts yet, what happens? You disturb the growth. Living from your elevated consciousness means waking up and acting with the quiet confidence of someone who knows the harvest is already guaranteed. From a psychological perspective, this is about maintaining neural consistency. If you spend 8 hours a night telling your brain you are abundant, but 16 hours a day telling it you are stressed and behind, you're sending mixed signals. Your brain gets confused, and those new neural pathways we've been building can't quite solidify. I think you'll find it helpful to start a micro-alignment practice throughout your day. Every time you feel that old ego pinch, that tightness in your chest when a bill arrives or a plan changes, I want you to pause for just 3 seconds. Imagine you are stepping back into that vast, still lake of the higher self. Ask yourself, how would the version of me who has already realized this dream respond to this moment? By doing this, you are practicing what Neville called mental diet. You aren't suppressing your feelings. You are choosing a higher vantage point. You are reminding your brain that the external world is just a delayed shadow of your internal light. I'm so curious for you to see what happens when you synthesize Dolores Cannon's higher self perspective with Neville's assumption. You start to realize that every person you meet and every event that happens is part of a bridge of incidents. You stop reacting to life and start interacting with it as the designer. This consistency is what hardwires your brain. After a while, you won't have to try to think this way. It becomes your default setting. I'd love to encourage you to treat your life as a living experiment. Don't just take my word for it. Test it. Spend today moving as if you are already the person you visualized last night. Notice how people look at you differently. Notice how your energy shifts. You are literally teaching your nervous system that safety and abundance are your new normal. I want you to think of this trust not as a blind leap into the dark, but as a muscle that gets stronger every single time you use it. Every time you choose to listen to that quiet expansion in your chest instead of the loud panic in your head, you are physically changing your brain. I'd love to give you a few practical anchors to help you deepen this connection until it feels as natural as breathing. Imagine you have a direct, high-speed fiber optic cable running from your heart to the heart of the universe. This is your intuitive line. To keep this line clear, I recommend a practice I call the 3-minute check-in. 3 times a day, maybe once after lunch, once in the afternoon, and once before dinner. Just pause. Don't look at your phone. simply ask your higher self, what is the most aligned thought I can have right now? I think you'll find it fascinating what happens next. You aren't looking for a loud voice, you're looking for a feeling. If you feel a sense of relief, that's your answer. By doing this, you are teaching your brain to prioritize intuitive knowing over ego logic. In terms of neuroplasticity, you are literally enlarging the parts of your brain responsible for self-awareness and decreasing the activity in the alarm centers. Next, I'd love to encourage you to start a trust journal, but with a twist. Instead of just writing what you want, write down every small win where your intuition was right. Did you have a random urge to take a different route home and avoid traffic? Write it down. Did you think of someone and they texted you 5 minutes later? Write it down. When you see the physical evidence of your higher self working in the small things, your ego starts to relax. It begins to think, oh, okay, this system actually works. This builds the neuroplastic capacity for trust. You are creating a feedback loop where trust leads to evidence, and evidence leads to even deeper trust. I'm so curious for you to try the silent command exercise. When you're faced with a decision, even something small like what to eat, don't think about it. Instead, imagine dropping the question down into your solar plexus and waiting for that neurological click of recognition we talked about earlier. The more you act on these small intuitive nudges, the more you're telling your subconscious that you are ready for the big shifts. You are essentially training your higher self to speak louder because it knows you are finally listening. I want you to remember that every act of trust is a vote for your new reality. You aren't just hoping for a better life. You are actively engineering a brain that is optimally wired to receive it. I want you to take a second and look around the room you're in right now. Everything you see, the chair you're sitting in, the device in your hand, even the clothes you're wearing, all of it began as a single, quiet thought in someone's mind before it became a physical reality. I'm so deeply moved to tell you that your life is no different. You are the architect, and the masterpiece is currently under construction. Living from your highest truth isn't just a spiritual nice to have. It is a fundamental transformation of how you interact with the fabric of existence. Imagine waking up every day without that low-level hum of anxiety about the future. Instead, you wake up with a profound sense of belonging to your life. You aren't chasing success anymore. You are simply stepping into the space that success has already prepared for you. I'd love for you to realize that as you apply these principles, aligning with Dolores' higher self and standing firm in Neville's assumptions, your brain is undergoing a physical revolution. You are no longer optimally wired for survival, for lack, or for the grind. You have become optimally wired for outcomes. Your perception has shifted so deeply that you no longer see obstacles. You only see the next step on the bridge your higher self has built. I want to challenge you starting tonight. Don't just listen to this and go back to the old manual way of living. Step into the role of the conscious engineer. Tonight, as you drift into that sacred space between waking and sleep, hand your blueprints over with a smile. Trust the process. Trust your neuroplasticity. But most of all, trust that the version of you who has everything you've ever dreamed of is already alive, breathing, and waiting for you to simply say, yes. This is your journey to the higher self. It's a journey from wishing to being. And I am so incredibly honored to have walked this part of the path with you. The world is waiting for the reality only you can manifest. Since we are moving into the realm of the higher self, we want this visualization to feel less like a to-do list and more like a sensory homecoming. Because we are working with your brain's natural neuroplasticity, we aren't just going to think about your goal. We are going to provide your subconscious with the rich, textured data it needs to believe the event is happening right now. Imagine you are already tucked in, the room is dark, and you've reached that heavy, relaxed state where your thoughts start to turn into soft images. This is where we begin. Close your eyes and feel the weight of your body against the mattress. I'd love for you to imagine a wave of golden light starting at your toes and slowly moving up to your head. As it passes, every muscle simply unplugs. Your jaw relaxes, your shoulders melt, and your breath slows down to a deep, rhythmic pace. You are now entering the theta state, the laboratory of the higher self. Don't look at your goal from the outside. Step into the body of your future self. Imagine a specific, tiny moment that implies your success is already a fact. If it's wealth, feel the texture of an expensive fabric you're wearing or the specific weight of a heavy door to your new home. If it's a career breakthrough, hear the specific voice of someone you respect saying, "I don't know how you did it, but this is incredible work." You must make it sensory. What do you smell? Is there the scent of rain on the pavement? The aroma of high-quality coffee? The more senses you involve, the more your brain accepts this as a memory of the future. Now, shift from the what to the feeling. Neville Goddard called this the tonality of the state. What is the dominant emotion of your higher self? Is it relief? Is it a quiet, powerful sense of, "I knew this was coming"? I'd love for you to let that feeling expand from your chest until it fills the entire room. Don't try to force it, just allow it to wash over you. This is the moment of neurological alignment. You are telling your nervous system, "This is my new safe space. This is home." Now, imagine standing face to face with a glowing, more expansive version of yourself, your higher self. You don't need to say a word. You simply hand them the feeling you just created, like handing over a precious seed. See them take it with a smile of absolute certainty. They've got it from here. The engineering is done. As you drift closer to actual sleep, let every other thought fall away. Use your knowing affirmation. Repeat it slowly, in rhythm with your breathing. It is done. It is done. It is done. Let the words become a blur. Let them be the last thing your conscious mind touches before you submerge into the deep waters of the subconscious. As you drift closer to actual sleep, let every other thought fall away. Use your knowing affirmation. Repeat it slowly, in rhythm with your breathing. It is done. It is done. It is done. Let the words become a blur. Let them be the last thing your conscious mind touches before you submerge into the deep waters of the subconscious. I'm so excited for you to try this tonight. Remember, you aren't trying to make something happen tomorrow. You are acknowledging that it has already happened in the higher realms, and your brain is simply catching up.